Hey everybody, I am Joe Tobias in Washington State, a elopement photographer based in Seattle. And it has been 9 years since my first wedding, which is a little bit crazy to realize. And so with that, I thought it would be interesting for me to come up with 9 tips that I wish I could give my younger self. And those aren't like buy Bitcoin or something like that, because that would be great. But we're not in a Back to the Future 2 situation here. So I'm more thinking like kind of general photography tips and photography business tips that I wish that I could give to my personal self. And then at the end of this, I thought it'd be funny to, or maybe it would be interesting to go back, and I'm going to actually pull up the photos from that first wedding and we can kind of look through those together and knock on wood, there's some gems, or at least some learning spots. So my first tip is to have community. And I'm not great at that. It's something that I really struggle with, is to how to have professional community. Because the people that I go to the bar with, the people that I hang out and hang in my backyard with, the people that my daughter hangs out with are not necessarily the same people that are into photography. Most of them are not wedding photographers. Most of them have other careers. Most of them have kind of, quote unquote normal jobs. And so that's not to say that they're not creative, they're not wonderful people, but they just have different interests and stuff. And so the importance of having a community of people who are into the same thing as you is vital. And that's something that it's taken me years to really realize, and then also to develop. And so rather than just saying have more photographer friends, which is kind of such a general term, or something just a general thing to say, that it doesn't really land, it doesn't give you specific tips. I kind of have 3 or 4 different categories of people that I would encourage you to have community in. The first is to have an inner circle, and these are the people that are photographers that you can send photos to and that you can share ideas with and stuff, that are they're looking out for your best aspect. And so for me, I have a group of 3 or 4 dudes that I am able to, at any time, I can text them either questions about how to deal with a client, I can send them photos that I'm not sure how I should edit it, all those kind of things. And I know there's zero judgment, and we all do it to help each other. And so just that inner circle is just there to be a resource and to provide encouragement for each other. The second type of people is someone who pushes you creatively. And so that could be as far as like a mentor or something, like a more formalized position of somebody who's more established than you, or who can help guide you along in there. But at least to have a relationship with people who, every time you look at their images, they imbibe something that you want to take on, that you want to become part of your work, and can help you in that trajectory, moving forward in your career. And don't just let that just be like that's not just looking at your phone, looking and following them on Instagram. Like, that's actually having a relationship with these kind of people, which is obviously can be harder to do. And that's why having community versus being inspired are very different things. And then the last type of community I encourage you to have is just people who want to talk photography. So for me, it's actually mostly, I'm in a couple Twitter groups where people we post all day long, and they are super vibrant. Like, I mean, we're talking hundreds of posts a day where we're just talking about photos. We're just talking about photography. We're just talking about film stocks and whatever else is on our mind, but is within that photography realm. So we can be nerdy about this thing that we actually like doing together, and not have to necessarily weigh down our partners with all this stuff about talking about what different f-stops your new lens has and stuff like that, because my wife doesn't care, but these folks, they do, and those are my people to talk to. So my second thing is be really wary of buying presets. That's to say that any good, like truly good photo will probably look good with just about any preset, and any pretty crappy photo will probably look pretty crappy on any preset. And that's not to say that there aren't value in them. It's great for consistency. They're great tools to try out new looks, to help you expand your mind on what Lightroom or whatever program you're using can do. But a preset is not going to help you shoot like somebody. Buying Bench Heish's presets is not going to make you Bench Heish overnight. That said, buy presets of people that you admire. If you just have followed them for years and they're selling presets, like, buying a preset can be a perfectly valuable way of saying, thank you, I appreciate what I've learned from you over the years, but that's also not to say I'm trying to be you. It's a way of saying, like, let me use this tool that you use and integrate it into my way. And so, like, the presets that I use are based on ones that I purchased, but I've manipulated them, I've changed them, I've done a lot to make them more my own over the years. And so if I'm buying presets now, anytime I'm purchasing a new one, it's not because I expect it to be perfect out of the box. I expect to have to make changes to make it more me, And that's okay. That's encouraged. And so with that, it's either to use something that I can look at a preset that's for sale and say, oh, I really like how this aspect of that photo is doing. I really like how it handles the shadow tones, and I would like to see how that's done. I really like how this series of photos is colorized, and I think that I can integrate that into my workflow well. So by buying a preset, I can look into the back end and see how that happened, and then find a way to mesh it into the understandings that I already have with Lightroom. Tip number 3 is that you never arrive. And that's a bummer. The thing is, like, this is art, this is a progress, and so there's no number of likes, there's no number of followers, there's no number of weddings, there's no number of annual sales, there's no number of things that will arrive for you. And so for me, that I found that to actually become extremely freeing. Now, I have goals. I have things that I'm trying to attain every year, but there's no point in that I can just say, oh, I've made it, because you never get to like coast. When we think of making it, we think of like some huge movie star or something that is suddenly super famous and they never have to work again, which is a load of crap. I mean, how many times have we now seen the people who are out there and how hard they're working behind the scenes, how many connections that they're making, and what else they're doing besides just making their art to make themselves be famous? Well, the same thing applies to photography. And so you never get to coast. And as soon as you start to coast, you're going to start to, like, your business is going to start to fall apart. So stop trying to arrive and just try to progress. Try to make it so that every year when you look back, you can see that there is progress in the various stages that you're trying to push yourself. Thing 4, deliver fewer photos. I think my first few weddings, I was delivering like 1,500 photos per and now I'm trying to keep it down to 600 or so per photo, and that's per wedding. And that's, even that might be high compared to some people. I mean, I know some people who deliver 200 photos a wedding, and that's not to say that I think those are better or worse, or even that those numbers need to be hard and fast, but just to get better at the process of saying, these are superfluous. This is what tells the story, and trying to dial it in, both in as you're shooting them, trying to find ways that an image can tell a bigger story, but then also in your culling, in your deleting, in your editing, pulling down so that you're saying, I don't need all of these photos to tell a photo. The same story, these ones, most likely either they're duplicates or they're just not good enough. And you can keep pushing those down until you can actually have a much more condensed and a much more vibrant set of photos that are being delivered. Tip 5 is to not stop learning, to continue pushing your education in photography. And again, with never arriving, you never fully learn at all. And so that could be as much as going to like a workshop, or it could be doing an online one, especially right now, as like going to in-person workshops is obviously not really possible. Online ones would be a good option for you. But with those, also try to make sure you're learning something specific. Like, know why you're going to a workshop, know why you're spending money on it. Now, the in-person ones, there's a lot more of that, or that intangible stuff, the community stuff, the practice, the collaboration, all those kind of things that allowed, because you're being you next to other people who are being themselves, pushes you all forward. When you're doing digital workshops, just get the ones that you know are going to push you in a way, are going to take you in a direction, are going to give you a piece of information that is something that is on the front edge of what you're learning right now. Number 6 is to have personal photography projects. Now, that's very different than saying, I'm going to take personal photos. I think we all take a ton of personal photos. I mean, between having your phone in your pocket, or a camera around your neck, or film point and shoot in your pocket or something like that. Like, I think most of us who are into photography are going to be just taking photos. But this is more to say, take specific projects, have a scope, have a plan, have something that you're making just for you. But it's not just snapping cool photos in a moment. It's going out and saying, I'm trying to tell this story. I'm trying to document this thing. I'm trying to do something and move on from it. Now, for me, on this YouTube channel in the last year has actually really enabled me to do a lot of those. Something like my classic car project, or not even classic, just my car photo project. There's the video that I made 6 months ago or something like that. And what that allowed me to do was to say, like, during this set of time, I'm going to hone in on this very specific concept. So for me, I'm going to use this one camera, this one film, and this one lens. I'm going to go out and photograph cars that catch my eye in my neighborhood. And so in that ability to document what I'm I'm seeing really helped hone me and help me practice. And I could look at those photos and I can see how much better I got at the framing, how much better I got at using light and documenting those particular cars in the various elements and stuff. And so by honing in and giving myself the parameters of a specific project, especially even if it's for a specific time, and where in this case it was for a video, so I knew that I needed to get that video out, so I wasn't going to be able to have this be an indefinite project, and that really helped. Number 7 is don't chase trends, but it's okay to experiment with them. Now, I think there's both sides of this. When we see trends, people kind of freak out and they're like, oh, we're going to do that because that's what's popular on Instagram. I'm going to take all these photos and get extra likes, and then I'm going to be popular and I'm going to make it, I'm going to be on the Explore page and then I'll be super famous. Again, as I said before, you're never, nothing is going to make you arrive. So with that, if there's a trend, go ahead, give it a shot. It might be interesting. It might continue to help you try something new, but at the same point, give yourself that like, I know. It's Whenever I'm trying something that's kind of trendy, it's not that I'm necessarily trying to make that exact same photo, and it's that I can go and copy whoever is extremely popular for this, because I'm not gonna try to become a TikTok star. But by trying whatever is that cool new thing, it might open up a new door for me, and that is something that will be useful for me down the road. And it will become a technique that I might have in my back pocket, that in a particular mood, a particular lighting, or a particular story, that skill set becomes super important. And so it's okay to play around with them and, put it on the internet, see what people think. But at the same point, don't let those become who you are, because then you're chasing trends all the time, and your thing is trends rather than your thing being you. Thing 8 is don't buy gear unless it specifically solves a problem you already have. I'm going to repeat that because it's kind of a long sentence, but do not buy new gear unless it solves a specific problem you already have. Now let me break that down. I get asked, oh, I want to get into photography. I want to buy a good camera. What should I buy? Well, your first problem is you're not already into photography. At that point, why are you buying a camera? I wanted to be talking to you who have been like, I have been using my phone and I keep trying to do it and I just can't get this thing right. Cool. What's the thing you're not getting right? Let's talk about that. Oh, it's because I want to take photos at night and it's too dark and it's too grainy and the on-camera flash looks like trash. Cool. So we can help you find a good camera with a bounce flash or an off-camera flash system that we can then help solve that problem. But if you're coming to me just saying like, oh, this is a cool new thing, I want to explore it, that is the fastest way to spend money on something that's going to just sit on a shelf. But if you're solving a problem that you already have, you're going to be buying tools that you need, and we're going to help you continue to progress. Because again, if you haven't caught on, the whole point of this video is to talk about how do we continue to progress as artists. That said, have I followed this rule? No, I have tons of crap that I don't need that I bought over the years, and I should probably sell it or throw it away. But every time I buy things, I'm trying to be better about asking myself that question of, does this solve the problem? And with that, am I cheaping out and buying a crappy one that I'm going to have to replace before too long? Or is this something I actually care about enough to buy a quality one that will last? And that, again, that's going to help me, maybe it costs more money now, but if I'm only buying it once, that's cheaper than buying it twice. And my last tip is specifically for wedding photographers, which is do not rely on your clients to get your food at the wedding. I'm a vegetarian, and so I don't eat the meat. I have had mashed potatoes and bread that's all I've eaten at numerous weddings. Also don't eat the cake, because that's just they all taste the same. I know that really makes, anybody who's getting married, you're like, no, but my cake's the best. Your cake is definitely the best, and I'm still not gonna eat it because I'm married to the best cake maker in the world. But, bring food with you that you actually like, that's actually healthy, because though everybody else is going out thinking this is our big party, if I'm doing this every Saturday or every Saturday and Sunday all summer long, that's a lot of running if I'm eating something heavy to balance it out. So, eat the food if it's there, but also have good food to back it up, so that I'm not, again, stuffing my face with mashed potatoes and bread to make up for the fact that I can't eat the regular food. All right, so those are nine tips. I hope those are really helpful for you too. And so now I'm gonna swing on over to my other setup and we can check out my first wedding. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm very curious and also slightly nervous about what these photos are gonna look like. I think this is it. It took me a while to find the photos and figure out which hard drive they were stored on, but I think I got it. All right, so what are we looking at here? Okay. I think I went to the rehearsal dinner, or the rehearsal before, the night before it, and it does not look like my scoring or my edits came through. So that's maybe both good and not so good. All right, that's a photo right there. So lighting is not great. Didn't even get it straight in the mirrors. So this wedding, I shot it on a Canon 60D, I believe, and it was in the middle of December, so I shot it with the Nifty 50, the original, but I think I had a different version of it than this one is. And then I used a 20, a Sigma 20mm, but not the new art ones, like their older version, and a crappy flash. So I think that Sigma might be the only piece of gear I still have from this day. So now I'm up here to some wedding dress photos. Doesn't look like I hit the focus on that one. Ooh, flash, nailed it, great plan. I don't know, maybe I'd take a photo like that now. Do appreciate that I have the exact same beard I had back then, but I think my hair is probably cooler, hopefully. But this was like my profile photo for a long time. That was, I don't know why, just a bow tie. So a lot of these, as I look at these, especially because I was using so the 60D is a crop sensor, and then putting a 50mm on, so it's like an 85, and so there's nothing wrong with being that tight, but I'm using that so much that it just is, and relying so much on the shallow depth of field and not knowing how to use a flash, not knowing how to use a bounce flash very well, that I can create light to allow for a little bit deeper depth of field right there. I do remember this, the best man being a dork. I mean, that's probably a photo I would probably take, I'm sure will happen and continues to happen, and I'll keep taking it. Here's the first look. I don't know why I had him sit. Maybe it's because he was so tall. But one thing I do like about this is that she kind of came around rather than so often with my first looks. Now I have them turn to each other, which is the problem is when you're working by yourself. When they're turning to each other, you're only going to see the back of one person. And so by having her come to the side like this, that actually really does enable to see both of their faces, which is a really good idea. Good job, old me. That said, I did not pose him very well. Missed the focus on those. Oof. Too wide, not lining things up. Alright, that's kind of cute. I hate the flash. I hate the way that I did that, but like the casualness of the pose is kind of cool, and I actually kind of like the wide angle. Again, I don't think I'd execute it in the same way, but I like the concept on this. It's like in this, like I actually really like the ring, but I don't know why I was so low. What am I using? Yeah, I'm using that 20mm f1.8, probably at 1.8 lens. And so that's why it's so shallow, but then it doesn't quite fall off because it's so wide, because I was using the crop sensor, and so in order, with that, let's see, a 20mm with a 1.5 crop, so it's probably acting at about a 35, but it actually has a little bit more distortion because of that, because of the 20mm, as compared to using a 35mm on a full frame body, but then shooting it wide open, and that lens just kind of sucks, and it has issues, and I don't think I knew to notice them back then. Whereas if I would have just stepped back and used the 50mm, I think I could have isolated them so that car in the background isn't quite so noticeable, but then also like had those lights over there. Like, why didn't I move them over to be right by those Christmas lights and use those as a backdrop? But still, like, I love the concept of like the bride and the groom there in the rain with the umbrella. Like, that's kind of cute. We can work with that, but just the execution isn't quite there yet. Ring photo. Did I get the focus? Maybe it's just a little bit soft on that. Try that. Is that better? I like the idea of using the reflection down there. That looked cool. I would probably do it so it wouldn't have this bar over here. And this one I was just so obsessed with using that wide openness that I didn't hit the focus very well. So I would have spent more time making sure that I did that correctly. But it's not bad for using that. And I don't think I used extension tubes or anything to get closer on those. So the bokeh looks pretty cool. Kind of. I don't know. That was like peak bokeh is king time. So make of it what you will. So yeah, people on the stairs, don't put them so high. Like bring them down here closer so you're more on the same level. I mean, you want to create that S curve in there, but again, I'm just like shooting straight up people's noses, so bring them closer to you. Oh man, I thought I've never done one of those photos, but I did. It's not my jam. Now, it was wintertime when we had at this wedding, and so it did make things just a little bit more tricky because I couldn't take family photos outside because it was winter and raining, so it got dark really quickly, and we definitely had to do them inside, which as someone who had very little flash experience at that point was a recipe for not the greatest things. It's just not great. It's just not good. There's just no focal point. People are getting pulled around. I have 3 different backdrops, 2 different foregrounds. This should be cropped out over here on the right. And again, because I'm shooting at eye level, I didn't squat down to, like I should bring that down just a little bit so that people aren't being that distorted upwards into the frame that they are in this. Man, that's still hard to work with. Really, this was a tough one to start on. Yep, and that was that. Let's see, what I've done now, definitely would have photoshopped him out, photoshopped that out, fix the vertical lines. And that's poof. Just, I don't even know what to do to save this. Remember dance parties? Those were fun. Hope we can get back to that someday. Well, and that's it. I'm gonna stop just because I don't know what else I have to learn from this except to say that I've definitely gotten better. And looking at your old photos can do 2 things for you. Number one, the ones from your past that are actually good mean a lot more, and the ones from your past that are not great can usually help you feel good about the progress you've made in your life. And if there's anything this video has said, is that we're all on a continuum, we're all in progress, we're all in process, and keep going. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one.